Americans have been watching videos of ICE tackling a young mother, tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood, and the smashing of car windows. Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough.
Hello everyone, it's Gothbeezy. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about a Goth's guide to fighting fascism. The Goth community has come together once again to bring you another educational video. We will each have our own topics going over our guides to fighting fascism, and within that we are going to be talking about ICE. Seeing everything going online constantly can be disheartening, exhausting, angering, and overwhelming. Trust me, I get it. I was sitting at home feeling completely helpless watching these videos, feeling so angry and disgusted with the world, and just felt like I couldn't do anything. Then I remembered that I can do something. So I messaged the Goth community and I said, let's make another educational video. I may not be able to go out there myself and put my life on the line and protest at the moment, but what I can do is bring people together. The Goth community is very passionate about activism and standing for what's right. Which brings me to my topic. Types of activism and choosing your roles. I want you to remember that you're not the only one feeling this way. There are so many people out there who are feeling affected by what's going on in this country. Take a deep breath and remember your strength. I want to talk to you about the social change ecosystem. It helps clarify value, roles, networks. The website is socialchange.map.com. I will also link it in the description below, so make sure to check it out, or feel free to screenshot what I'm about to show you. Each role plays a huge part in fighting for solidarity. If someone says, well, you are not out there fighting and protesting, don't let that discourage you. Just breathe and remember that your role is just as important. So let's go ahead and take a look at this chart. What's your social change role? Here's the chart. It goes over different things, different ways that you can be an activist with your strengths and skills. This chart can help you decide what you can do and what your role is. So let's go ahead and take a look and start at the Weaver. We see things through lines of connectivity between people, places, organizations, ideas, and movement. Experimenters. We innovate, pioneer, and invent. We take risks and course correct as needed. Frontline responders. We address community crisis by assembling and organizing resources, networks, and messages. Then we have visionaries. We imagine and generate our boldest possibilities, hopes, and dreams, and remind us of our direction. Builders. We develop, organize, and implement ideas, practices, people, and resources in service to a collective vision. Caregivers. We nurture and nourish the people around us by creating a sustaining community of care, joy, and connect. Then we have our disruptors. We take uncomfortable and risky actions to shake up the status quo, to raise awareness, and to build power. We have our healers. We recognize and tend to the generational and current trauma caused by the oppressive system, institutions, policies, and practices. Storytellers. We craft and share our community stories, cultures, experiences, histories, and possibilities through art, music, media, and movement. Guides. We teach, counsel, and advise using our gifts of well-earned discernment and wisdom. Here's the chart. Feel free to screenshot it and use it for yourself. I think in this video, you're going to see a lot of the different types of social roles. We do have a few people that in this video that go out and protest. We have storytellers, we have guides, we have visionaries, and caregivers as well. So it's quite amazing to see. Depending on your strengths, you can have more than one role. For me, I am a caregiver, a builder, a visionary, and guide. That's where I feel like I fit best with my type of activism. I can go into that on a deeper level with you for if you want to get into it more personally, but as of right now, I'm going to kind of leave this as an educational video. These are just examples of what I feel like fit for me. Even just having one role is extremely helpful. If you are just barely starting out your activism journey, start off with one. Take a moment and think about what you're good at. Is it organizing and planning? Can you take risky actions? Do you have a platform to educate, spread awareness? Are you an artist, creative? Are you a mother and father and have littles that you can teach and break generational traumas? I am positive that everyone watching this video has their own skills, and I am really glad that you are taking this step and watching this video. Learning and expanding your mind is just one way to start your activism journey. Another small step is calling your senator. You can call them at 202-224-3121. I have the script here. I will show you. You can use this script when you call your senator. Feel free to take a screenshot, or you can visit my Instagram. It is on my Instagram as well. I think another great way, another small step, is to start talking to the people around you. Start talking to your family, your friends, and kind of start those uncomfortable conversations. I know it's not always easy talking to people about these things, but it really is a domino effect. If one person starts talking about it, another one will. And I unfortunately have lost a lot of family due to speaking how I feel about everything and being an activist, but I'd rather be on the right side of history and fight for what's right than keep people in my life that are unwilling to learn. And that's only if you're able to. I know every situation is different, but that is a start. As a creative person, one of my favorite things to see is other creatives use their skill to speak up. Art has always been extremely political. It has been a form of protest dating back to ancient civilization. For this particular subject, I had amazing artists from all over send me their art protesting ICE. Every single one of them has their username on their art. So if you like their art, please follow them on Instagram. All of them are so amazing, and I am honored that everyone submitted their work. I am going to hand this over to my friend Bridget. She's going to go over how she uses her art to protest, and as well show you the art that I have collected for this segment. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video.
Hi everyone, my name is Bridget Nicole, and my Instagram handle is BriggyBat. And I am a music artist that goes under the name Bricks, and I have been making music for 7 to 8 months, and I've already gotten so much support. And a lot of you from the last video I was in gave me a lot of support as well. New supporters, I love y'all. Thank y'all so much. And today I would like to speak on a few things. Firstly, as a creative artist and someone who has taught myself how to co-produce, make music, and use their voice, it is okay if you want to speak out about what's going on through your art. If you don't have money, you should not feel ashamed or scared or think, oh, I don't have any money to donate, I can't make a difference. Trust me, your voice can do so much, like digital art, poetry, regular art, doing anything, standing up for what's right, is better than doing nothing at all. I just wanted to say that, and you do not need money. It's always good to donate if you can, but you don't have to have money. Don't ever feel bad because you don't have the money. That's straight up part one. And the second thing is, today I am doing a little bit something different. Instead of saying a bunch of things, I'm going to be doing a song cover that I thought was a beautiful song that really covers about what's going on right now in these times. And we have had such lovely people make anti-ICE art and, anti-fascism, anti-Nazi, everything. So what's going to happen is we're going to show these lovely artists' artwork while I have the cover that I did. Forgive me, this is not a professional cover, unfortunately. I'm still pretty new, so, but yeah. I'm gonna be showing the art with the cover, So I really hope you guys enjoy it. The artists worked very hard on these art projects. Some of the artwork is even my own. So I really hope you guys enjoy the beautiful art. All my artists out there, I love you. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys love the cover. And it's a cover by Sophia Isela, Us and Pigs. Please go check out her music. Her music is phenomenal.
Don't care about, and if the kid's not straight, white male, we guarantee a living hell. Murder in the name of a loving God.
And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it.
I ate dinner with bees, crinkled hands and red cheeks, looking at my body like it's food. And your breath smells like bacon. You ask what's a special occasion, like a dress and dance just for you. A women or cattle, there's blood on our kids, and you're being paid to not pay attention. Does it have to happen to your mother, to your sister, or your daughter for you to take it personal? Some papas full of sperm, put us in a barn. Us and pigs on a Mississippi farm. In 9 months we'll have a kid you won't care about. And if the kid's still straight white male, we guarantee it'll leave it out. Murder in the name of a loving God. Women or cattle, there's blood on our kids, and you're being paid to not pay attention. Does it have to happen to your mother, to your sister, or your daughter for you to take it personal? So burn the witch alive, drink all dirty water, be prepared for the Mississippi slaughter. Your mistress gets a pass, 'cause the wife can't find out. I guess it would just be
started using my music as a form of protest simply because I just started noticing celebrities and artists that we all grew up idolizing and watching and praising just becoming very hypocritical the moment that the money started to come from another side, and they just started, abandoning the fan bases that built them up to where they are. Like, artists are nothing without their fans. I know that better than anyone. I'm an artist that has struggled for years and years and years to connect with people. And so the moment I started criticizing, this trend among artists and celebrities doing this, through my music, that really resonated with people. And once I saw that I had hit something that really resonated with people and really connected to them, and it was also something that meant a lot to me to stand up for something that matters, I was like, yeah, let me just dive deeper into this and keep doing this and just keep letting people know that, their voices are heard, and, you know, there are artists that agree with them and aren't going to turn their backs on them. So, yeah. My name's Kiara, and I dissed Nicki Minaj for becoming MAGA.
And you have amazing role models like the assassin J.D. Vance. And when I say that...
Oh, so you MAGA now. Whoa. What's that about? All your fans is mad and now it's Nicki that they gon' remember. Donald ain't no role model. The pain he's caused is massive. I'd say your taste in man has changed, but it really hasn't. You said that boys will be boys. Did you mean that sincerely, or did you mean that you support actions of sex offenders like Trump and Kitty? Trinidad, maybe we should send you back. All these signatures on these petitions say we think you're whack. Alright, listen, Nicki, when I say this, I'll be nice. Cause unlike you, I don't comment. I'll have this moment for life. Calling JD an assassin is the least of my concerns. You sound oblivious, but you ain't dumb. You knew that it would burn. 10 million unfollows on IG. Piss everyone off and disappear. Guess that's your IP. Yes, you can change your mind, but know that you might disappoint. Nicki, your career is dead. This is the turning point.
Hi, my name is Danny, or Coffin Goblin, and I'll be discussing the effects of ICE on Europe and the UK. So, the Winter Olympics started last week in Milan, and Italian authorities confirmed that US ICE agents would be present to support local authorities in vetting and mitigating risks posed by transnational criminal organizations, but ICE would not be patrolling the streets. Still, ICE's presence has triggered an uproar across Europe. What is ICE, an American force, doing in Italy, and what power do they have on foreign soil? Left-wing MEPs have called for ICE personnel to be banned from the continent, warning that the increased violence and repression of ICE will directly impact European citizens. The Italian opinion, on the other hand, seems to be split. Certain politicians see this cooperation as a normal part of major international events, whilst others, including the mayor of Milan, firmly oppose ICE's presence in Italy. Several protests and petitions have also been launched. The controversy deepened when reports came out revealing ICE's business ties with France's IT group Capgemini. Its US subsidiary had been awarded a $365 million contract to provide ICE agents with skip tracing services for locating and identifying immigrants. Since this revelation in January this year, Capgemini has been under fire to explain this contract. Why is European technology being used for the aggressive US deportations? The belief that what is currently happening in the US could never happen in Europe and the UK is very naive. Across Europe and the UK, political parties have started developing plans for their own versions of ICE. In Germany, the far-right party, AfD, proposed an ICE-style police force for tracking asylum seekers and deportations. Their proposals include curfews, mandatory community service, and segregated schools to increase public safety. Their deportation plans would not just be limited to asylum seekers, but would also extend to German citizens with immigrant backgrounds. These measures seem to mirror Germany's dark past, which you'd think they wouldn't want to repeat. The AfD's popularity is rising at an alarming rate, and they are the second strongest political party in Bavaria. Similar ideas have also been paralleled by far-right parties in France, the Netherlands, and Italy, pushing for harsher deportation rules and expanded surveillance under the guise of security. The situation in the UK is not any better. Mass surveillance plans, immigrants being used as a scapegoat and portrayed as threats, Home Office ministers are joining immigration raids and using them as PR stunts. Peaceful protesters are being arrested at pro-Palestine rallies. Border Force now has the right to seize phones from people not even under arrest. Both the Conservative and Reform Party have pledged ICE-style removal forces for Britain. The Tories want a removal force with facial recognition powers to deport 150,000 people a year, necessitating £1.6 billion of taxpayer money. Remind Remind me again how this is supposed to help the cost of living crisis? Tories talk about ICE as a successful approach and hint at pulling the UK out of the European Convention of Human Rights if it gets in the way. So human rights are treated as an obstacle? On the other hand, Reform proposes Operation Restoring Justice, a £10 billion plan to, quote, create an enforcement unit called UK Deportation Command, including an legal migrant identification center harnessing cutting-edge data fusion. Reforms plan to not just deport migrants, but detaining them in England in giant immigration removal centers is made even scarier by their plan to scrap the European Convention of Human Rights, the UN Convention Against Torture, and the Council of Europe's Anti-Trafficking Convention. It raises alarm about what Reform wants to do with these immigrants in these centers. Both of these plans echo ICE, the same language of security, promises of control, and the same risks of abuse. An ICE-style system needs data. Palantir has a track record of working with ICE agents and the IDF. As it turns out, Palantir also has its hands in the UK, as it is closely linked to senior figures in the Labour government. The company has a £330 million contract with the NHS to link and manage patient data. The Green Party leader, Zach Polanski, said, "This Trump-supporting military surveillance outfit has no place in Britain's most important institution. As authoritarian policies are increasingly being pursued across the UK and Europe, we must stand up for human rights and protect our neighbours, not just in our continent, but elsewhere as well." Thank you for listening.
Hi everybody, I'm Damon Desaad. Instagram is Damon is Vegan. I've worked in information and technology for almost a decade now, and I want to talk to everybody about how ICE is exploiting AI and technology to keep a constant monitor on citizens. I'll outline what you can do to protect yourself, as well as some steps you can take to help reduce the likelihood that they're benefiting from your daily use of technology. As a federal law enforcement agency under the Department of Homeland Security, ICE has innumerable methods to track individuals' daily habits. Private information in law enforcement agency databases typically include things like housing location, mailing addresses, as well as tracking known emails or social media profiles. They can know common places where an individual may upload photos to or report events that they may show up to or express interest in. So think of Facebook event invites or places where you may upload a weekly tradition of getting lunch or brunch at a local shop. AI has also played an increasingly concerning role too, not just in our environmental impact and the cost of hardware, but also in surveillance. AI has evolved the role of cameras from recording grainy footage at gas stations, outside of banks, or popular venues into detailed license plate readers, facial recognition programs that can link individuals to outstanding warrants, prior criminal history, or potentially anyone with distinctive clothing. AI has allowed for security cameras to find people based off of profiles ranging from headwear, clothing styles, irregular walking patterns, and even beverages being consumed in large public stadiums. A very concerning implication comes from the series of false positives and identifying the wrong person based on incorrect positive identification due to the AI's algorithm, leading to wrongful detainment and arrest. On top of this, there's further concern with the availability of public recordings of individuals by private security from everyday folks. A massive contention currently is that the popular doorbell camera company Ring has announced in 2025 a partnership with Flock. Flock is a security technology company that uses instruments like photo recognition, license plate readers, and last known locations of individuals to identify who is going where and to find more relevant information around individuals they deem to be a suspect of any crime. Flock's partnership with Ring brings many concerns due to the potential for the application to share footage to ICE via its law enforcement connections. Though Ring currently states that its partnership with Flock is to allow for the community members to share its data willingly with law enforcement upon their requests, many are increasingly removing their use of Ring cameras due to the privacy page, which states a concerning possibility. The law enforcement guidelines page from Ring notes that Ring may produce videos from customers' device for law enforcement's, in quote-unquote, response to a valid and binding search warrant. Ring notifies users when it shares their footage with law enforcement unless it is prohibited from doing so. Although Ring states that it does not share customers' footage or feed with ICE and it is intended for local law enforcement agencies upon their request, their own privacy page brings up potential for uncertainty and unsafe feelings for many who have seen many mishandlings of private customer data in the past by Ring. For example, in 2023, the FTC found Ring employees illegally surveilling on their customers and also not preventing hackers from spying on their consumers. Additionally, other media pages and organizations reported that Flock audit logs showed that data from local police departments was included in immigrant-related searches by other police departments on Flock. These searches included data from police departments that hadn't agreed to share their data with ICE. For many individuals, this alludes to a strong possibility that data mishandling or a subversion of their restrictions may be more probable than most users are willing to accept in the future, given the track record that we've seen. Some users of home security systems, myself included, are currently opting to swap out of Ring cameras to other home security systems like Wise, which do not hold a partnership with Flock and only release relevant data upon receiving a valid subpoena or a search warrant for the information suspected to be present on saved recordings of the feed itself.
So you are an immigrant or have family or friends that are immigrants, correct?
Yes.
And at what age did you immigrate over here to the United States of America?
When I was 3, almost 4 years old.
And what was it that made your parents want to come here?
It was mainly due to the fact that my dad was working in the States and my mom lived in Mexico, but because my dad got under contract to work for 2-3 years in construction, so my mom made the tough decision to go out and just, go with my dad to America to actually live over here.
I know that you're very aware with everything going on, but are your family or any of your friends also aware of what's going on? Do they have any kind of plans or even just thoughts about it?
I know a lot of my, the cousins that I do talk to regularly are very aware about the situation. I talk to them, whenever I get new information, kind of relay stuff like that. I don't necessarily think that a lot of my older relatives necessarily know the full aspect of what's been going on. For them, it's always kind of been a thing where it's like, oh, they just live in the US. They really don't mind if they have to go back to Mexico. They'd rather not, as their lives are built over here.
And do you feel like a lot of your family share the same sentiment that their lives are better over here? Or do you feel like because of the changing climate and whatnot, it might feel safer to just stay back home instead?
I feel like a lot of them generally do say that it is better to live over here, but it's also come down to the fact that this is where their side of the family is. Mm-hmm. Now, they have all of their immediate family over here in the States, so for them it's just, one trip or a plane ride to go just see the rest of the family. Mm-hmm. But especially because my grandma did also move with them over here to the States. So for them it's, they came over whenever they were teenagers. Well, they didn't necessarily grow up here. They had a lot of their very formative years here.
Mm-hmm. And you feel, or do you know if she feels like getting in and out of the country then was easier or harder than it is now?
For her at the time, it was very easy. The farm that they had over there in Mexico started running dry as, the well that they had in their giant water pit, it just stopped producing water, and they were like, well, we can't sustain ourselves. So she made the tough choice to kind of sell the land, and with that money, they went over and moved to Texas. And from there, they got all of my aunt's citizenship. So by the time that they went, my dad got citizenship whenever he was, 13.
And moving here when you were younger and staying here since then, do you feel like maybe you've missed out on some of the things that your other family has gotten to be able to do going just back and forth across the border?
I would say yes, as a lot of my younger, or a lot of my cousins and stuff, they have had chances to go actually to Mexico, visit their side of the family, whenever they were younger, because they were born here, so they had citizenship. For me, I couldn't experience that. I would only be able to see my grandma once every 3 years, whenever she would be able to actually get her visa renewed. So for me, I pretty much missed out on seeing a lot of my cousins and stuff from my mom's side. And I do feel like there is a disconnect between me and that side of the family just because I wasn't raised with them.
Do you feel like there were any kind of hurdles or anything that you had to go through within the public education system growing up when you were put into schools here, or anything that your mom had to go through in that process?
It was pretty much a hassle, especially early in elementary school and middle school and high school. It did get better, but around elementary school, my dad worked under contract, so he would constantly have to go wherever his boss went for work. So we would only stay in one place for, let's say, 2 years. I think my parents had to pay more for my schooling and such.
Really? Wow. And
then also I didn't get any of the benefits after graduating. And because at the time I was only a resident whenever I graduated high school. If I pursued college, I would have had to pay the out-of-state, payment, because technically I am not a citizen, and that right is only given to citizens. Nor could I get actual scholarships. Mm-hmm. I was banned from getting a lot of scholarships unless they were specifically made for, immigrants and people like that.
Yeah, so that is the current rhetoric that is being spread by this administration, is that migrants are getting more benefits and programs that a lot of civilians, the average civilian, is not even privy to. Do you feel like that is an accurate representation or conclusion that they've come to?
The only extra help that I actually received was whenever I was in elementary school, and that's because they forced me to have like classes with people who specifically spoke both languages, because they saw that I was having some issues with English, and they would basically help me out with that. But as soon as I got into middle school, all that help kind of stopped.
So as you had to obtain your citizenship once you turned 18, we were underneath the Biden administration at the time. Did you have any kind of worries or concerns about not being able to obtain this?
Not necessarily. I was very just hesitant on the fact that I didn't know how long it was going to take. By the time I got my residency, I almost turned 18 and would have actually graduated out the system. So the process is different for if you're underage and overage. And so if I would have aged out, I would have had to stay in Mexico, because I was one of the people who actually had to be sent to Mexico to get my residency there. And if I would have aged out, I would have actually had to stay in Mexico until I went through the full process again as an adult. And by then it took a year and a half after I got my residency to get my citizenship.
So your mom, did she self-deport, or how did that process kind of happen?
So
if you want to kind of go through that.
It was the same situation as me, where she had to go to Mexico for her residency, and pretty much she did all the process and stuff, but we were kind of screwed over in the fact that our lawyer didn't close the fact that because my mom was an adult whenever she crossed, she needed to also get a pardon from Mexico, and that's for the situation. And she only got a pardon from the US before they sent her over. And because she didn't have both pardons in the situation, she basically got rejected. And so she has to stay in Mexico. She's been there for 2 years now. And the process for getting a pardon from Mexico is around 2 to 3 years on itself, and then another year to enlist on the process again.
And how do you feel that is affecting having half of your family here and the other half in Mexico? How do you feel like that is affecting, for instance, your younger siblings who are now growing up in a different environment and much different experience than you did?
Mm-hmm. For me, in my opinion, I'd say that my younger siblings are lucky enough to have my mom's side of the family right there as well, because my mom does live right next to her mother. So she does get some help from, her mother and her sisters to babysit the kids or whenever she needs. But I know, personally, my sister, they've actually talked to doctors and therapists about it, because my sister gets extremely depressed as a 7-year-old. After we leave, she gets very depressed to the point where she stops eating.
Have any of your younger siblings expressed wanting to come back here?
Yes, all of them have.
And as I understand, your siblings are and were born in the United States.
Yes.
And yet they have to stay in Mexico with your mother.
They don't necessarily have to stay, but it is in the best interest of them, as me and my dad both work, so we are unable to provide childcare for the 3 younger ones.
Has your family come up with any kind of plan in the instance that your mother is not allowed back into the country?
My dad has been fixing up the house that we have over there, and in the instance that my mom is not able to come back, my dad has expressed he would like to sell all of the businesses and stuff that he owns here to move over there permanently.
Do you feel like what's going on right now in the United States is unprecedented, or do you feel like this is rather unsurprising that all of this is going on? And have you experienced this ever, or seen this kind of level of violence in any other administrations before?
I haven't seen any level as extreme like this, and any previous reign and stuff. I know it was common back in the early 2000s, before I was born, to have situations like this. Years throughout, illegal immigrants still getting deported and stuff, but I haven't seen it at such a scale as it is now. And I wouldn't say I'm necessarily surprised, but I am surprised at the way that it has just fully grown out in the way that it has.
And have you even thought of any kind of plans or anything of what you would do if they came to your town?
Not necessarily. I'm in one of those situations where I have all my IDs, all my documents with me at all times, but even then, showing all of my paperwork and stuff will not fully guarantee me a way out of the situation.
Do you think that there is going to be any end to this, or any possibility that we'll just go back to normal after this current administration ends?
I don't think it would be that easy. I'm someone who believes in the saying, believe what people say about themselves, and seeing how many people are so supportive or against with this has really led me to kind of see the bad in people, and kind of have a thought where it's I know not everyone, but the majority of people still would like to see me gone.
Hello everybody, my name is Kiana and I go by @Souvenir de Florence on Instagram and @Kiana on all my other platforms. Online, I make mutual aid videos for several families in Palestine. If you're interested in redistributing your wealth and supporting mutual aid needs, you will find these families highlighted in the description of this video. Although I'm not American myself, I'm a settler on indigenous Mi'kmaq land. The issue I will be highlighting in this section of the video is one that affects us all around the world: disability justice and COVID. Now, I can tell that that word alone is already ruffling a lot of feathers. COVID-19 is over, right? Unfortunately, you'd be incorrect. Enforced masking and other precautions may have been removed worldwide as of 2021-2022, but the pandemic remains strong. But Kiana, you may be asking, how does COVID and masking relate to ICE and fascism at all? Well, let me elucidate. Firstly, I want to combat a huge misinterpretation of ICE agents and what they wear on their faces. On the internet, we have seen countless people rip on ICE for being against masks, quote unquote, during COVID, but going on to wear them to hide their identity. While in practice, commenting on this hypocrisy is good, the majority of you have become similar to Republicans in your views on masking. From liberals and leftists alike, I hear phrases and words like, I don't need to care about COVID because I'm not immunocompromised. I'm not sick. Why do I need to wear a mask? COVID was 6 years ago. Let it go. What, do you expect me to wear a mask forever? During the pandemic, and goodness, so much more. The language that many of you use when it comes to the pandemic genuinely needs to stop. Back on topic. ICE agents aren't wearing masks. They are wearing face coverings. As mentioned previously, they wear these to hide their ugly-ass Yahtzee faces. In contrast, masks are medical devices that protect my health and yours when worn properly. This difference matters. Compared to ICE's face coverings, masks and respirators are essential for the safety of our communities. Black, brown, and trans people, and especially trans people of color, are more likely to be targeted for masking in public, and have a higher chance of being affected by long COVID and other severe chronic illnesses, which I will touch on in a minute. Furthermore, they are also more likely to be seen as suspicious when masking due to racist and transphobic/transmisogynist beliefs. Thus, saying that ICE agents are wearing masks is not only untrue, but is actively making worse for those of us who are affected by airborne disease, which is everyone. To continue, I think that it's important to talk about the elephant in the room. Why you should adopt masking again if you've stopped. It's not only important for protecting for airborne diseases and viruses, but it also protects us from facial recognition. To begin, a rapid-fire information spiel. According to the Sick Times and Long COVID Justice, SARS-CoV-2 virus is what causes the COVID-19 infection. It is an airborne infection that travels through the air like cigarette smoke and is spread all year round, thanks to the lack of protective measures people have taken against the condition since 2022. In fact, many diseases that have returned or have gotten worse since 2022 are also airborne, such as measles, influenza, RSV, tuberculosis, and the common cold. During the initial lockdowns, we learned about the spread of COVID differently, that it is spread through droplets and through not washing hands/cleaning surfaces. A huge paradigm shift. Numerous medical studies, as well as the personal experiences of people with long COVID, have shown that COVID-19 is not just a respiratory illness, but a vascular disease and a neuroinvasive virus, and can give people long-term health conditions and damage after one or multiple mild or even asymptomatic infections. COVID does not discriminate and affects everybody, not just the immunocompromised. Long COVID symptoms that people with long COVID experience include sleep issues, neurological issues, a change or loss of smell and or taste, post-exertional malaise, chronic pain, and sensory issues with light and sound. And those are just a few. People who suffer from COVID infections may also then suffer from ME/CFS, myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is a neuroimmune disorder triggered by viruses and infection. Children are one of the populations suffering the most after COVID-19 infections. Jasmine Laws notes that over 5 million children in the United States alone are suffering from long COVID, and that the disease has surpassed asthma as the #1 chronic illness in that age range. Furthermore, COVID impairs immune function in your T cells and increases your risk of myocarditis, heart attacks, heart failure, kidney dysfunction, cognition issues, and organ dysfunctions that heightens your chances of cancer. Now, you're hearing all of this and maybe rightfully concerned, and you're right to be. The government lied to us when it claimed that COVID-19 was over and that we could all return to our normal lives. However, not all is lost. While fascists want us to spread disease so that the vulnerable can be pushed to the wayside, which was actually said by the CDC, by the way, we can do one simple thing and start wearing respirator masks in public and taking precautions against all illnesses. To get respirator masks, support your local mask block. In the description of this video, I'll ask Beezy to link the mask block directory, where you can find your nearest one. A mask block is a mutual aid organization that provides high-quality respirator masks as well as other protection measures like rapid COVID-19 tests and influenza tests to their local and surrounding communities for free. If you don't have a mask block near you, see if any in the near vicinity of you will mail you masks and supplies for free. When masking, be sure to wear a KN95 at the minimum. Unfortunately, blue and black surgical masks do not provide adequate protection due to the air holes that they often leave in people. If you struggle with sensory issues or breathing with masks, I recommend the duckbill N95. That one has personally helped me as an autistic person with sensory issues. They look silly, but work tremendously well. My personal favorite masks are the Vitacor Black N95, the Flow mask, the Well Before KN95, the 3M Aura N95, the 3M V-Flex N95, the Kind KN95, and the Breathe Tech KN95. But other masks will work for you and will not work for you. And that's why it's important to test out your fit every time you get a new mask. Other supplies that may help you when masking in public are sip valves. They're these little attachments that you add to a mask that let you drink any liquid through a straw in public. CO2 monitors and portable air purifiers. Hi, it's editing Kiana here. Please ignore my entireness, but I just wanted to note that air purifiers tend to be on the more expensive side of COVID precautions. So I just wanted to let you guys know that there are such thing as clean air leading libraries where you can request to rent an air purifier for a certain amount of time for any kind of event. And I just think that that is something you guys need to look into as well if you are curious. If you're in so-called Canada, like me, the organization Donate a Mask is a Canada-wide mask block that will send you masks for free upon request. They also have a shop where you can purchase masks and other supplies. I will have that linked in the description as well. As Goths, it's important for us to highlight disability justice within the subculture, and masking just hits the tip of the iceberg. Inaccessibility remains a huge issue within local scenes, concerts, and other indoor and outdoor events related to Goth. For instance, I am unable to go to Goth nights or concerts due to my personal COVID precautions, as personally it is too high risk. It is a heartbreaking loss that many people experience. I, like many others who take COVID precautions, have lost friends, comrades, organizers, and the ability to continue doing activism in person. However, if the majority of us, and those who physically can, adopt masking, using air purifiers, and testing regularly, we are doing the opposite of what fascists want. If we truly want to call in community, don't leave them behind by practicing unmitigated spread of disease. Overall, I hope that this section of this video led you to, at least at the minimum, consider masking again if you stopped. We cannot fight ICE and fascism if all of us become disabled from COVID and other viruses. Much love to you all. Bisous.
Hi, my name is Leonie, I'm from Germany, and I am here to tell you about all the things that you can do from outside of the US to help and care and advocate for the people that are currently suffering under the terror of ICE. You do not have to live in the US to care, and you don't have to live there to help either. What ICE is doing affects real people, families, kids, workers, and silence only makes it easier for that harm to continue. From outside of the US, your voice still means a lot. One of the most powerful things you can do is to amplify. Repost information from migrant advocates and community organizations. Share the stories of real people affected to make sure they aren't erased or ignored. If they have a fundraiser to help with legal fees, repost, support it, and share it. Donate if you are able to. Legal defense funds, bail funds, and mutual aid group advocates directly support migrants facing detention or deportation. Even small amounts add up if people act together. If you cannot afford to donate anything, that is not a big thing. Repost, share, be a voice for people who need it. It doesn't matter how big your platform is or how small. Every repost, every share, every so little donation makes a huge difference. But the most important thing is to not look away. Push back against misinformation. Remind others that borders do not define who has a right to live or who deserves dignity, safety, and human rights. Solidarity doesn't stop at borders. Speak up, be loud, and be a voice for the people who maybe cannot speak up anymore. I hope I was able to give you a few good tips along the way on how to help and how to show care about the situation in America right now. As I said, you do not have to be like a huge influencer or anybody with thousands of followers. Every so small platform helps. Every number is a human being. If we share and if we repost all the stuff, it makes already such a big difference.
Hello, I'm Mary Lugosi's Dead over on Instagram. My pronouns are they, them, and I've been goth for about a year now. I wanted to shed light on times that American ICE agents have acted excessively or unlawfully. Posted by the Washington Post on December 12, 2025, protesters in Minneapolis are seen throwing snowballs at ICE vehicles. ICE responds by pepper spraying them.
Oh, come on! Come on! It's right. Everybody's throwing shit. Yeah, we're good.
In a video posted by the Oregonian on October 3rd, 2025, protesters are seen calmly talking to ICE and they wind up getting pepper sprayed.
Who is talking to you? No. Hey, this is the line that they created.
In a report from Fox 9 posted December 6, 2025, ICE is seen dragging a pregnant woman across the ground for supposedly throwing rocks at them.
As ICE agents dragged this pregnant woman across the street, Tanika Dorch watched and recorded.
They chased her down to the corner and they took her and they were really forceful and brutal with her.
She's pregnant! You don't see her stomach?
Dorch and others shouted at agents to stop, but they didn't.
They had busted the window open and snatched people out of the cars.
They're attacking people!
The chaos started around 1 o'clock Monday afternoon at the corner of 29th Street and Pillsbury Avenue. ICE says it went after a car as part of an operation when rioters started throwing chunks of ice at them and shouted death threats. That's when they say the woman you see on the ground here tried to vandalize an ICE squad car.
It was a really crazy moment.
But Dorch says she saw the whole thing and insists that's not how it happened.
That's a lie. She didn't rush. She didn't try to vandalize any of their vehicles.
In a news report from Fox 11 Los Angeles, 79-year-old business owner details how ICE raided his business and threw him to the ground multiple times, even though him and all of his workers were perfectly legal.
That's 79-year-old Rafi Shuhed describing what he says happened September 9th when federal agents descended on his Valley car wash to arrest workers suspected of being in the U.S. illegally.
I was begging him. I have a heart condition.
Surveillance video shows agents first approaching the elderly man inside of his business 2 weeks ago. He says he attempted to ask them what they needed and pleaded with them to allow his workers to retrieve their papers proving they had a right to work in the U.S. Instead, he was thrown to the ground.
So you were pushed 2 times, one in the hallway? One in the hallway and one outside.
Undeterred, he followed the agents outside, where he says the encounter escalated, even though he was respectful. Rafi was now terrified, outnumbered, and outmuscled.
Finally, and most damning, CBS details how a federal judge ordered ICE to release over 600 people on bond and 13 fully released. This was posted November 13th, 2025, talking about Operation Midway Blitz that was in Chicago.
A federal judge has ruled that hundreds of people detained by ICE during Operation Midway Blitz in the Chicago area must be released. Over the next week, Judge Jeffrey Cummings ordered more than 600 people detained between June and October to be released on bond and placed in a so-called Alternatives to Detention surveillance program. 13 people identified as being unlawfully detained will be released without bond. Judge Cummings also gave the Trump administration until next Wednesday to provide the names of all individuals arrested by ICE and Border Patrol in the Chicago area since June 11th.
It's clear from the evidence just from the latter half of 2025, they have a pattern of acting excessively and outside of the law. They use pepper spray to shut down conversations. They treat the vulnerable with violence. They treat snowballs like they're bullets, and they treat the law like a suggestion.
Hello everyone, my name is Minnie, also known as Panic or Panic in the Sorority Online. I'm a small content creator on TikTok and Instagram, and today I'm going to talk about the origins of ICE. In this time, we're over the media. We keep hearing words like revolution, class consciousness, and organization due to not only the imperial invasions and violence inflicted by the West towards global southern countries, but also due to the crimes committed domestically and in the United States by the governmental violent organizations that terrorize people, like what happened in Minnesota with Renee Good. I consider it to be important not only to struggle, fight, and face this wave of domestic terrorism and fascism, but it is also important not to forget our history. Throughout history, we've had various, not to say hundreds, of violent governmental organizations that use similar tactics and sometimes even are trained or inspired by one another. To mention the most relevant ones, in the 19th century, we had the slave patrols. In the 20th century, we had the Gestapo, the BPS, or the Obra. And similarly, in this century, we have the IDF and ICE. By inspired or trained by one another, I mean situations where BPS was trained by a Gestapo general, or the BPS worked with the CIA against the USSR. Or we can also see the similarities of how people were treated in Nazi Germany and indigenous Americans were treated in a post 9/11 America, in an America going through a wave of anti-Muslim racism, a time where hate crimes against Muslims and brown people who could be mistaken for Muslims increased 1,617% from 2000 to 2001, only the ones reported to the FBI, where people were beaten or held at gunpoint simply for being brown. The American government and former President George W. Bush were quick to take advantage of the situation by starting the war on terror. This term essentially meant the expansion of the American empire of the Middle East for geopolitical power, and domestically the demonization of brown people for both economic and societal mistreatments to be seen as correct or a fight against terrorists. The war on terror came the war in Iraq, where the American government accused Iraq of owning weapons of mass destruction and of being an active part of the 9/11 attacks, categorized Iraq as terrorists, and invaded the country for oil. Those accusations were absurd, and there were many anti-war protests, but a part of the public is needed to be able to implement such foreign policies successfully, part which existed and helped to manufacture consent for the war. America has been implementing violent policies on foreign nations that have been repeated throughout the years. We can use Venezuela as an example. Kidnapping the president of a foreign country, attempting regime change, killing innocent civilians, and openly admitting it's for oil, having People who manufacture consent for the invasion, either taking the two things can be true at once position or openly celebrating the oil theft. When we talk about foreign policy and foreign actions of our government, we don't only talk about missions, continents away from us that don't affect us, but we talk about governmental organizations that commit atrocities, learn tactics, bring them back home, and teach them to domestic organizations that deal with us. With this also comes the major spending that goes to these imperial acts from 9/11 to 2018. $5.6 trillion were destined towards wars conducted towards global southern sovereign nations for resources. In 2002, also as a response to the 9/11 attacks, the US government realized a reorganization of federal law enforcement agencies. With it came the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, which integrated from 22 to 24 federal agencies, including ICE and the Border Patrol. ICE has been operating since 2003. Their current mission is, and I quote, securing our nation's borders and safeguarding the integrity of our immigration system. This mission hasn't been accomplished and won't be accomplished by any bourgeois governmental racist agency. Following the racist nature of the American nation, ICE, since its origin, have been terrorizing communities, murdering people, persecuting innocent working-class Americans, separating families, arresting children, and more, conducting illegal actions all throughout the nation with pure immunity. ICE has always been violent, not under a democratic leadership nor under a Republican leadership. They have been peaceful. We must also not forget that the funding of ICE is bipartisan. Democrats and Republicans have both increased ICE funding throughout the years. Between 2003 and 2016, ICE's budget nearly doubled from $3.3 billion to $6.1 billion under Bush and Obama. ICE is a white supremacist agency at its root. Tactics they use to identify, select, arrest, and mass deport people use racial profiling, and they follow a doctrine that consists in restricting the livelihood and harassing immigrant communities, hoping they self-deport. Same tactic as IDF soldiers in Palestine. ICE can't be reformed. ICE is a pure representation of the racist character of America. Since its creation, abolish ICE and abolish capitalism.
Hi, my name is Katie, and you might know me as Katie Cadaver on social media. I'm an elder Goth and a harm reduction social worker working in supportive housing. And today I'd like to share with you what abolishing the police might actually look like in real life. When people hear the phrase abolish the police, they often imagine chaos, danger, or a world without safety. But that's not what abolition really means. Abolition is not about removing safety, it's about rethinking what safety actually is and who it is actually for. For generations, police have been framed as the solution to social problems, but police are often sent to handle things that they were never trained to address, such as mental health crises, addiction, homelessness, domestic conflict, youth behavior, or poverty. These are not criminal problems. They are social, economic, and health issues. When armed officers respond to these situations, the outcomes are often harmful, especially for marginalized communities, racialized people, disabled people, poor people, and queer and trans people. So the question isn't what would we do without police? The real question is, why have we relied on police to solve problems that require care, not force? Abolition is about building systems that prevent harm before it happens. Imagine a world where instead of police responding to mental health crises, trained mental health professionals arrive, people who know how to de-escalate, listen, and support rather than punish. Imagine community-based crisis teams made up of social workers, medics, and peer support workers who respond to emergencies without weapons. This already exists in some places, programs that send medics and crisis workers instead of police to thousands of calls every year. The result, fewer arrests, fewer injuries, and better outcomes for people in crisis. Imagine if homelessness was addressed with housing and not handcuffs. If addiction was treated with health care and harm reduction, not jail cells. If youth conflict was met with mentorship and restorative justice, not criminal records. These are not fantasies. These are alternative models that already work. Community care means investing in things that actually reduce harm. Affordable housing, mental health services, education and youth programs. violence interruption initiatives, mutual aid networks, and restorative and transformative justice. Restorative justice focuses on accountability, healing, and repairing harm rather than punishment. Instead of asking, how do we punish this person? It asks, what harm happened, who was affected, and how do we repair it? Transformative justice goes even further. It asks, what conditions created this harm in the first place, and how do we change them? Abolition isn't about flipping a switch overnight. It's a process. It's about gradually shrinking the role of policing while expanding systems of care. Right now, governments spend billions on police and prisons while underfunding schools, healthcare, and social services. Abolition asks us to flip those priorities because safety doesn't come from surveillance and punishment. It comes from stability, support, and community. When people have housing, food, healthcare, and connection, harm is reduced. When communities are resourced, they become safer, not more dangerous. Abolish the police isn't a slogan about chaos. It's a demand for a world where care replaces control, where prevention replaces punishment, and where safety is something everyone can actually experience, not just a privileged few. The question isn't whether we can imagine alternatives, it's whether we're brave enough to build them.
Hello everyone, my name is Remy. I'm 20 years old, currently a sophomore in college studying political science in New Jersey, where I grew up. And for those who may or may not know, New Jersey is a sanctuary state, which means that we have certain laws and legislation that allows for there to be a limit of cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration officers. Despite this legislation, we are still struggling with ICE agents flooding our streets, kidnapping our neighbors, and violating our inalienable rights every single day. Following an ICE raid of a Morristown laundromat last month where 11 people were taken, people decided that they couldn't go to school and they couldn't go to work anymore because they were too fearful that they too would be kidnapped and disappeared. Just 2 months ago in December, only 1 day after being detained, John Wilson Brutus died in ICE custody at Delaney Hall, one of the biggest ICE facilities on the East Coast. His death was determined to be from natural causes despite him not having any sort of cardiovascular problems or health conditions beforehand, and ICE still refuses to release any more information about him. Earlier this month, after the mayor of Jersey City signed an executive order that barred ICE agents from operating on city-owned property, they were found violating that, and this was their response.
So I'm the elected official. My name is Jake Efros. I am the city council person right here in Jersey.
You can do whatever you want. Just don't interfere. Are we cool?
Okay, what is the...
I'm not going to tell you anything else.
Do you have a warrant?
We don't need a warrant, bro. Stop getting that in your head. That's it. Okay.
In seeing all of this cruelty and lawlessness, it's important to note that this is absolutely nothing new for the United States. In fact, through studying U.S. history, it's impossible not to see the uncanny resemblance between how ICE is operating today and how slave patrols operated in the 1700s. Slave patrols were government-sanctioned groups of white citizens who monitored and repressed enslaved populations. Not only were they used to kidnap and return runaway slaves, but they were also used to quell any sort of revolt or insurrection. They could legally racially profile people, often stopping, searching, and questioning anybody that was black. They were given the freedom to beat and abuse black people without any sort of legal repercussion, and they were often violent towards any white people that refused to cooperate or helped slaves escape. Although from two different eras, both of these agencies show that there is a persisting culture of white supremacy in the United States that won't go away unless we all fight against it. Unfortunately, there's a growing sentiment amongst Black American communities that ICE is not their problem because they are not the current targets. But what people are failing to see is that first it was the white settler colonialists, then it was the slave patrols and the KKK. Now it's ICE and the police. And once every other group is picked apart and destroyed, you will inevitably be next. So we all need to band together and fight against this fascist regime, not just because we might be next on the chopping block, but because in the famous words of Fannie Lou Hamer, nobody's free until everybody's free.
Hello, my name is Kiana Butler, also known as Jinxology on Instagram. Today I will be spreading awareness about the different ways we can boycott big box companies. Why boycott these companies? Boycotting offers people in a community a way to stand up for what they believe in a way that's easy and relatively accessible for most. Boycotting pressures big corporations to change. People who work in a marketing department for major corporations are likely to be concerned if they find out people are organizing a boycott campaign against them. Boycotting draws attention to the issues for these companies that are funding ICE, Israel ideologies, and AI. Boycotting has been a used practice for years. For example, the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955. We as a community can make things change if we go ahead and boycott these big box companies that are supporting Israel ideologies and AI and ICE. We have to stop funding Israel, ICE, and AI, and that starts with divesting from big corporations and funding local businesses instead. There are so many small businesses and companies that you can substitute for those big nasty corporations that only want your money. Supporting your local farmers markets or grocery stores instead of buying from Walmart or Kroger's, or supporting your local thrift stores instead of buying from fast fashion like Shein and Temu. Most of the time, boycotting is simply switching a name brand product for an off-brand one. But often it involves research and making conscious choices and effort to find alternatives that work for you. You might not be able to boycott everything, and that's okay. The key is making a conscious effort and being intentional with how you spend your money. Limiting consumption to things you need and making ethical choices is one of them. There are some things that can be avoidable for some that others might have trouble finding alternatives for, especially those who are low income, disabled, or people who live in food deserts where big box companies is the only thing they can buy from. Boycotting works. Starbucks sales have declined significantly since the boycott began. Thanks to the amazing community and support, Starbucks will close 400 cafes across the country because of the Gaza boycotts. Boycotting works and has always worked. Just you boycotting a Walmart brand thing to a local business brand helps so much because you're not feeding these companies big, giving them money and supporting their AI. It only gets worse from here if we keep supporting these big companies. This is why I'm trying to preach boycotting, because it helps you, it helps the community, and it unites us all and gets rid of AI.
Hello, my name is Mika, and I just want to start off by saying thank you to Beezy for allowing me to be a part of this video. Now today I'm going to be talking about basically what to do when ICE comes knocking at your door and the difference between an administrative warrant and a judicial warrant. Now the difference between these two are extremely important. A judicial warrant is something that is signed by a judge. It should have the date that it was issued, the date it is valid until. It should also have the property on it listed that they are allowed to search and seize. And again, it should have that signature and say that it was signed by a judge pretty much. Now an administrative warrant, pretty much anyone can sign one. Any ICE officer can sign one. This means nothing. These hold no power. It's not going to have any of the information that a judicial warrant should have on it. And if they do serve you this administrative warrant, you do not have to abide by it at all. But if you are served a judicial warrant, you do legally have to comply. Now, they should have no reason to serve you a judicial warrant unless you've committed a crime of any kind. You might have a warrant out for your arrest, anything like that. Maybe you overstayed your visa, stuff like that. Unless you've done those things, there should be no other reason they should have this judicial warrant. Now, there's been a lot of rumors like going around that, you know, Trump has abolished our rights and that they are allowed to just storm inside of, our homes and everything. And there's this new rule for ICE agents. They don't have to serve you a warrant. That is not true. And that is extremely dangerous information to be spreading. Now, just because the president or ICE has a memo does not mean that is law. Memo does not equal law. That is a whole process that I'm sure you already know about. And I can't stress this enough. Stop spreading false information like this. You could get a family hurt. They very much do still need a judicial warrant signed by a judge. Now, one of my favorite attorneys on here, Attorney Martinez, she is amazing. She talks about your rights basically, and you know what to do if ICE does a certain thing, or when it comes to your immigration, what you need to do for a certain whatever you're here for. I definitely recommend you check her out. She's awesome. And yes, again, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this video. My name is Mika, or Metalhead Mika on Instagram. And a little bit about myself is that I've been goth for almost 10 years, ever since I was young. And, you know, being goth for that long, there's definitely a lot of very embarrassing memories and photos. But yeah, I felt inclined to this community because it was full of a lot of people that I felt like I could relate to and had the same, you know, viewpoints as I did and beliefs and morals that I have. All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Zatovi, and I'm going to talk about Minneapolis and Operation Metro Surge. The hyper-targeting of ICE in the city of Minneapolis in Minnesota is a concentrated attack underneath the term Operation Metro Surge. December 1st, it was initiated, in which the federal government's intent was to arrest all of the illegal aliens, especially targeting not only Latino communities, but specifically Minnesotan Somali communities as well. Fueled by accusations of fraud involving millions of federal funding for daycares and social services. The Somali daycare that was accused is one such example of the fear-mongering that was being spread even amongst citizens and online influencers, quote-unquote, who would go and investigate this on their own, creating propaganda and mistrust amongst the public of immigrants and immigrant-owned businesses. After sending over 2,000 federal agents to the Minneapolis area, things escalated over the course of December and leading into the first week of January when Renee Nicole Good was murdered on January 7th. Her murder was a direct consequence of the escalation, any lack of care that goes into federal agents' training when dealing with citizens and detainees. As we already know, ICE is ruthless in how they handle people. They are not trained to treat people with respect. Anyone who is in the way of their objective, which is to kidnap people, that objective includes squashing anyone who stands in the way of that. The same night of Renee Nicole Good's murder, there were two lesser-known people, Mar Navarro and Anna Brauch, both of which are American citizens, were detained the same night as Renee Nicole Good's murder. Two prominent members of the local goth alternative scenes, with Mar being the founder of Gothbeezy Minneapolis, of a goth club in the Twin Cities, also belonging to the Latino community, made a video on their detainment in order to help raise funds and eventually lobby for their release, which did happen. They are now safe at home. However, both of them were hurt by ICE, especially Anna, who suffered from injuries due to their detainment. January 8th is when the vigils and protests from downtown and in front of government buildings started for Minneapolis, and it just continued on and off in different pockets of the city. January 12th, the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, and the mayors of Minneapolis and St. Paul brought a joint lawsuit against the federal government. This did nothing. On the 17th, far-right provocateur and former rioter of the January 6th protests, Jake Lang, visited Minneapolis to lead a pro-ICE demonstration. He was quickly overtaken by leftists and liberals in the city. He claimed that he was stabbed by people. He claimed that he was lynched. It was a whole lot. Essentially, he got by the same people that he said were weak and wouldn't do shit. And since then, he has kicked down an anti-ICE sculpture and was arrested for it. And so he's kind of just ridiculous. Moving on with the timeline. J.D. Vance visited Minneapolis January 22nd. The next day, there was the mass protest and economic shutdown across the state of Minnesota, particularly in the metro areas. There was another one a week later, the next Friday, because folks felt that the main one didn't do enough, because only a day later, Alex Peretti was murdered in South Minneapolis. Mind you, Nicole Renee Good was also murdered in South Minneapolis. where I reside. Kristi Noem, Trump's DHS, defended his murder. The federal government used his permit to carry as an excuse for his murder, which was ganged up on by multiple agents and never once pulled out his gun. Since then, there have been even more protests and more escalations and people protesting on the corners of streets, including a lot of indigenous folks who do traditional dances while singing and saying "fuck ICE." My experience as the average Black trans American citizen in occupied Minneapolis has been a little bit scary. The average Minneapolis resident does not like ICE, and is afraid of them, and if not afraid, absolutely despises them and their existence. Sometimes are afraid to leave our houses because there have been American citizens who have been wrongfully detained, primarily people of color, but there have been Europeans who have been detained, so white people aren't safe. Since Operation Metro Surge has started, we have lost hundreds and thousands of our local community members who are immigrants. Small businesses have suffered, large businesses have suffered, the city itself has lost millions, and there has been an even bigger loss of security and confidence in our local government systems, which is why we have been moving more inwards into community building, mutual aid, and other self-reliant community bases. Because Minnesota has been seen as one of the most progressive states and has one of the largest immigration populations, it makes perfect sense why they targeted us first, and they are still targeting us. Since the federal government announced that they would be pulling agents, there are still plenty of agents who are still here. Those who have remained have been focusing their efforts into blending into Midwestern society. So we see more ICE agents are wearing Midwestern gear, who are putting on anti-ICE bumper stickers to trick people into thinking that that's not a vehicle for ICE. There's a lot more information about Minneapolis specifically that I do not have the time to cover. However, I will point out the most effective ways that we have found to fight against ICE is to show up in large numbers and disrupt them when they are trying to detain people. When you see a kidnapping, it is common for almost every leftist, liberal, or average person on the street to have a whistle on them. People who see something, say something, and do something. There was a non-fatal shooting in North Minneapolis, a red line neighborhood that's considered the ghetto that I grew up in. Community members showed up and intimidated ICE enough to where they left. Sure, they still cause damage and they still continue to kidnap people. However, I have seen plenty of videos of ICE getting in their vehicles and simply leaving because they cannot handle the heat and the amount of people that swarm them in instances where they are confronted. If you don't learn anything else from this section of my video, it is that Minneapolis has shown that showing up and showing out and directly confronting ICE agents en masse has been the most effective way to prevent kidnappings. Even distracting ICE agents enough to where someone can slip away underneath their grasp, get into their car and drive away has been helpful. Here are some resources to keep up with Minnesota, and I thank you for listening to me.
Hi everyone, Damon here. On the process of immigration, there are multiple variables between countries in the process of becoming an American citizen. One video can't cover them all, but I've outlined some information regarding the process that I've been familiarized with some very close friends and family of mine that have gone through very similar processes. I've also made sure to include where possible there may be some potential overlap between what I've seen online and what they've gotten, so it may not be perfect, but it's certainly a good overview. Now, naturalization is the process of someone becoming a United States citizen voluntarily after not being legally born inside the United States, insofar that they've met some of the requirements that have been outlined by Congress. First, typically individuals will apply for a U.S. green card, as they either have family in the U.S. or they've been given an employment opportunity to work inside the United States and have that count towards their time of permanent lawful residency. Sometimes, depending on an applicant's age, before they can go through the process of obtaining a green card, the individual may need to have their passport verified, their birth certificate present, and any criminal records shown via a police certificate to indicate whether or not they have any prior criminal history before they can be given a green card. For some countries, they may not let you hold a dual citizenship, meaning that you're a citizen of two countries at the same time. It's important to note that some countries also do not consider having a green card as impacting your citizenship status of your home country, so it's best to check the requirements for the U.S. and your home country of residency. For someone who's obtained a green card, the process to becoming a naturalized citizen is long and arduous, but it is achievable. After meeting the requirements of being physically present in the U.S. for a predetermined period of time of residency, filling out a lengthy form, paying a $760 fee, meeting the standards of good moral character, such as committing no serious or financial crimes, taking and passing both a relevant civics and English test, as well as meeting in a federal building to conduct an in-person interview to pass before going to a federal courthouse to take an oath to become a sworn citizen. There's a lot in between that can gunk up the time. Now, for anyone curious, for the time of residency, if you are not married, the time is for 5 years. You must be present in the U.S. for at least 30 of those months. If you're married, you have to take 18 months of being physically present inside the U.S. So at least half of the time that you have been applying or trying to apply for it inside of the U.S. must be physically present here. Additionally, of note, before wrapping this whole thing up, if you are in such a country which does not allow for dual citizenship, you may need to in fact revoke your other citizenship from that country as well. As I alluded to earlier, each step in the process can be delayed for a myriad of reasons. Things like a backlog of requests, an improperly filed form, the financial cost of filling out forms, getting an immigration lawyer, as well as dates being missed for priority filing, or dates being delayed during the naturalization process as well, all do tend to come back on the end applier. So if you are trying to be naturalized, you may have significant hurdles as a result. That being said though, an immigration lawyer is by far going to be your best bet to fast track the process, and there are innumerable ways to reach out. Additionally, the $760 fee can be reduced or waived if you're someone who is reliant on EBT, SNAP, or other government benefits as well. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that you've learned something or that this video has been any bit insightful for you in case you had any questions.
In the current state of the world, human lives are placed below the law in the guise of protecting a broken society, and each day we see so many instances where power is abused in a system that's meant to prevent abuse and save the innocent. We also see this in many different places of power, like the police, military, and immigration patrol. They all intertwine when it comes to their frequent abuse and manipulative tactics and methods of violence. One big example of this comes from the IOF, also known as the Israeli Occupying Force. They have long terrorized the Palestinian people by means of dehumanizing and evil and violent behavior, and have not faced any consequences for these actions to this day. It seems to happen time and time again when a particular group, usually armed, is given the green light to pick who is innocent or guilty. When you think about these types of people who are given a power to abuse others, the question arises, how do we identify these methods of brutality and these patterns of oppression in society that demands us to respect the abusers? First, we have to understand where these tactics originated from. They can be traced back to the job of slave patrol, which is a very early stage of policing that instead targeted people of color in order to protect a white society. And their job consisted of using excessive force to control and subdue black people, and this continued into the modern state of policing. So this was systematically put in place by the people in power to keep black people from having equal rights. There is a significant, disproportionate number of people of color who are detained and incarcerated by police since the creation of slave patrol. They use manipulation tactics like racial profiling, which means they assume that someone's a criminal based on the color of their skin and will target them. And this is another tactic shared by the IDF, who target any group who looks similar to Palestinians. And this is a form of profiling used to justify their violence and abuse against them. Similarly, ICE, also known as Immigration Customs Enforcement, they also use racial profiling as a tactic in order to seek out anyone who they think looks illegal. And this is how they're able to control and subdue almost anyone, and it puts so many lives at risk. And another tactic that is frequently used by the IDF and ICE and the police is intimidation. And an example of this is them gaining entry to an individual's home without a proper warrant and interrogating them. And when it comes to ICE, they're usually referred to as ruses. They can be very serious because ICE will use this as an excuse to raid a person's living space and escalate the situation. Familiarity with ruses can help to prevent ICE raids and arrests. So in basic terms, it's a strategy that's used to gain access to lure somebody into public or a private space and arrest them. And this tactic is also present when the IDF would go door to door to Palestinian homes and demand that they leave. And if they would not, they would use brutal force and violence and intimidation. And police have also been seen utilizing the ruse method, and they usually end up escalating the situation more than helping it. There's ways to keep yourself safe from ruses, but sadly these people in power, they're unpredictable, so protecting yourself from these situations is incredibly important. And ICE likes to hide among law enforcement, so they'll pretend to be police officers in order to get more information out of you. So always remember that you have the right to say nothing. Always know your rights. I will link down a link where it's from the Immigrant Defense Project, and it has like a know your rights thing. I definitely recommend reading that. And the last tactic I want to discuss is the use of extreme force against civilians, which is something that all of these places of power have abused collectively. From tear gassing to shooting with rubber bullets and even tasing innocent people. Many of these methods get worse as we go down the line. For example, the IDF has used white phosphorus in order to make Palestinians sick. ICE has been intentionally abusing people who have been detained by them or deported by them by means of starving or forcing them in prison cells, like rooms with no sunlight or no ventilation, and they're no longer seen as humans. And this is how we can expect the rise of fascism to show. Human beings treated as less simply because they don't have a piece of paper. This is not okay, and we need to do better in protecting our communities by speaking up and educating our friends.
Hello, lovelies. My name is Alessandra Valentine. I'm 21 years old, and I've been involved in the Goth community for nearly 3 years now. I recently became a mama bat, so motherhood has been a priority for me as of late. But before my pregnancy and moving out of the state, I was a community organizer in the South Florida area. I met my group of comrades and started organizing at 19 years old. They are genuinely like a second family to me. They taught me so many things about organizing, protesting methods, protesting safety, and online security. I'm so thankful to have been a part of a space with people who care about fighting for what's right, and today I want to share some of that knowledge with you all. Firstly, I want to clarify the difference between these two words, mobilizing and organizing. Both organization and mobilization are crucial to social justice movements, but the overall goals and impact differ. Mobilization focuses on moving the masses towards achieving a temporary goal, whereas organization is meant to build something to last long term. Mobilization can be used as a tool in organizing depending on how you go about it, most specifically as a tool for networking. One example is the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, which is largely credited as one of the most successful, well-organized mobilizations. It brought like-minded people together for a cause that was dear to them, and it garnered a lot of public attention. Over this last decade, we've seen an increase of mobilizations for causes like police brutality, the Black Lives Matter movement, the genocide in Palestine, the No Kings protests, and in growing numbers more recently, anti-ICE protests. From these mobilizations, you can form connections with other protesters and find groups in your area to get more involved. Or if you are already an organizer yourself, you can find other orgs to collaborate with. Organizing focuses on building long-lasting community support networks, building trust, and making sure individuals' concerns or ideas are heard. Organizing usually involves an establishment of affinity groups or groups of individuals who focus on a specific task within a larger group to highlight the strengths between organizers and to get work done more efficiently. For example, there might be an affinity group dedicated to social media and networking, or a affinity group that specializes in research, or one that specializes in fundraising. Next, I want to talk about different protesting methods and their effectiveness throughout history. Some protest methods include sit-ins, walkouts or other strikes, rallies and other mass mobilizations such as marches, higher risk direct actions that usually involve some sort of property destruction or sometimes violence like graffiti or riots, or more passive lower risk forms like petitioning, flyering, creating political art, or boycotting. A sit-in is a form of direct action that involves occupying a space as a form of protest and is usually a non-violent form of civil disobedience. An example of this would be the 1960s Greensboro sit-ins. This instance included Black students sitting at a whites-only lunch section at F.W. Woolworth's campus in North Carolina. The effectiveness of this level of protest varies depending on the action. But in regards to the civil rights movement, they did a lot to propel the movement forward. With these types of protests, onlookers can usually see a stark contrast between the nonviolent protesters and law enforcement, who usually forcibly remove protesters from the scene of the action. Walkouts are a form of striking protest that involves students or employees walking out of their school or place of employment to demand a change in conditions or divestment from harmful institutions or practices. The point of these demonstrations is usually to send a message to employers or administrators of disapproval. Walkouts are generally a short-term action and depend on effectiveness of moral pressure to create a change. Rallies are a form of protest that involve bringing a group together for a specific cause, usually involving a central meeting point like a city hall or detention center. Protesters often chant and hold signs and use noise-making devices like microphones or drums. Marches are another type of protest that are very similar. Protesters move from a specific meeting point on a pre-planned route to another location, or they circle back to the original meeting point. All protesting methods have their own risks. Sit-ins, strikes, and boycotts are all considered non-violent direct actions and are usually lower risk. Marches done without permits from the city or police can also be considered a form of direct action. Acts of sabotage like graffiti or other forms of property destruction need to be thoroughly planned out, and the knowledge and details of said plan should be limited to a need-to-know basis. Lastly, I want to talk about some of the do's and don'ts of protesting. Like I mentioned before, there are many different types of protest methods, all with varying levels of risk, but overall the precautions are relatively the same. For in-person protesting methods, do bring a buddy or two. There's safety in numbers. Don't walk anywhere or leave the protest by yourself. Being alone leaves you vulnerable to possible arrest or harassment from law enforcement or counter-protesters. Do wear a mask, preferably a KN95. Cover your hair, tattoos, piercings, and other easily identifiable features. And wear comfortably fitting plain clothes, which means no logos or bright colors. The goal is to blend in, not stand out. Don't publicly post any photographs or videos from the action of an individual or group of individuals unless you are recording for their safety. For example, in the case of an unlawful arrest or assault, especially if their features are visible. Keep it off the internet. Do bring a small bag with a day's worth of water and snacks, cash, and any personal medications or over-the-counter medications like Tylenol. If you choose to bring your ID, make sure it is secured in a place where you will not lose it or drop it. If you choose to bring your cell phone, disable Face and Touch ID and choose a secure password that is not easily guessable, so the more characters the better. Turn off your location services, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. Don't resist detainment or arrest even if you know you haven't done anything wrong. Take it from me as someone with experience getting arrested. Resisting can result in higher charges on you or possible harm brought to you. Do not consent to a body search or a phone search, nor DNA collection. Do not answer any questions or sign any paperwork unless you have an attorney or lawyer present. Do, when stopped by police, ask if you are free to go, and if the answer is yes, then calmly walk away. Do let a friend, family member, loved one know who is not at the action where you are going to be, as well as the action start and end time if you know the end time. Sometimes actions can go on hours longer than it says on the flyer, so just keep that in mind. Consider writing their number somewhere on your body if you don't have it memorized, and make sure to also learn your local jail support number and have that written down too if you don't have it memorized, just in case of emergency. With all that being said, I hope you guys were able to get a better understanding of protesting safety and the difference between mobilizing versus organizing. Be smart, and remember, we keep us safe.
Hello. This piece was written by Susie Eldridge, or Eldridge Kisser on Instagram. Today, I've decided to define many of the terms Goths speak about when discussing the subculture, but never actually define. Many people nowadays seem to have the idea that Goth is not inherently political, and aside from this often being a go-to catchphrase from right-wingers attempting to join the scene, it's also blatantly false. Much of the music that falls under the Goth label is highly political, whether overtly or subtly, and the musicians themselves are often vocal about their beliefs. But what exactly are these beliefs? When the Goths say that the subculture is political, what does that mean? Leftism. If there's one ideology you must follow in order to accurately call yourself a Goth, it is leftism. I must start with that important distinction that many people don't, but should, know. Liberalism and leftism are not the same thing. Liberalism is a right-wing ideology, just like conservatism. Liberalism is simply the tamer end of the right. Liberalism relies on attempting to follow the rules of a corrupt system in a futile attempt to maybe fix it. Leftism, however, doesn't believe in the current capitalist system at all. Core leftist beliefs include acceptance and equity, not just equality, but equity, two different things, for minorities. This means you cannot call yourself a leftist if you hold any prejudice for others on the basis of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, religion, age, class, ability, and so on. It just isn't possible. Leftism also means believing in the rights of the working class, and that wealth should not accumulate in the hands of a few wealthy individuals. Instead, leftists believe that an uber-rich must redistribute their wealth to those in need. Leftism centers around having guaranteed access to the resources that we need to not just survive, but live comfortably. Essentially, it's everything the right wing is against. And yes, your favorite Goth musician is a leftist. Anti-consumerism. This is a big one, and unfortunately, many more popular Goth creators on social media don't adhere to this. Anti-consumerism means not purchasing in great excess of one's needs, as well as being sure to avoid brands that use unethical business practices. This especially includes alt brands like Killstar and Dolls Kills, fast fashion sites like Shein and Temu, and monopolies that treat their workers unjustly like Amazon. A common criticism of anti-consumerism, especially regarding clothing purchases, is the no ethical consumption under capitalism argument, with many refuters bringing it up as unethical labor is used to make smartphones. This is, of course, true. However, there is a distinct difference between buying necessities from unethical companies in order to function and survive, and buying alternative clothing that you don't need. If it isn't something you need to survive, you have no reason to purchase it from an unethical business. Instead, thrifting DIY. There's no thrift stores near you, there's always online marketplaces like Mercari and Vinted. You can find really cool clothes for cheap prices on those sites. It just requires a little bit of patience. And compared to spending money to companies that exploit child labor, I'd say it's patience well spent. Anti-capitalism. This is similar to anti-consumerism. You cannot be anti-capitalist if you're not anti-consumerist. Anti-capitalism is the opposition to the largely unregulated market. Under capitalism, the government is very limited in how much they can intervene in the business of private corporations. This means that private corporations are often allowed to get away with very shady dealings, sometimes crossing the line into criminal. Though unions exist, corporations are often union bust, which is preventing workers from organizing, unionizing, and bargaining for their rights. Goths tend to lead towards socialism, sometimes communism. This doesn't mean a direct copy of Soviet communism, despite what capitalists may argue. This simply means that modern-day communists seek to actionably apply Marxist-Leninist political theory to our current society. This is called praxis. It is the synthesis between theory and action, and it requires not only having a knowledge of theory, but also current political knowledge as well. Anti-capitalism also requires organization in some way. It's not that you can just be, it's something that you do. This can be in your local community or an online community, or ideally, both. Overthrowing the capitalist system cannot be achieved alone. It must have an organized group of like-minded leftists who are prepared to do whatever it takes. At its core, anti-capitalism is the ideology of those who believe the working class should have control over the means of production, operating them rather than being exploited by the rich who currently own them. Anti-authoritarianism. Authoritarianism is a political system that is largely singular, meaning there's only one political party, that of those in power. Anti-authoritarianism, of course, means being against this. Under authoritarianism, there aren't many people in power at all. Instead, most, or all, of the decision-making power is delegated to one individual or a select few. These individuals usually were not chosen by the people, but usurped the leadership role for themselves. Currently in the United States, authoritarianism is rising. The Trump administration has been slowly but surely consolidating more and more of the power to the executive branch, at times entirely disregarding judges who challenge their decisions. It's worth noting that while we do have two major political parties in theory, being Republican and Democrat, this isn't really the case. Both parties are two sides of the same ugly capitalist coin. The Democrats are just a bit nicer about it. In essence, it's one big party made of people with largely the same goals, money and re-election. They just use different means to achieve these goals. Being anti-authoritarianism means being against this type of government. It means supporting a political system where there is genuine representation for all, rather than those who just align with their leaders' beliefs. Most importantly is that anti-authoritarians are ready to act. It's one thing to say you're anti-authoritarian, but it's another thing to actually organize in your community and start working towards this. Though the Constitution was not written by ethical individuals, it is still the current law of the U.S., and it clearly states that people have a right to overthrow a corrupt government if necessary. It is absolutely necessary, so let's organize. Anti-ICE. As we all likely know, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has significantly ramped up their operations since Trump had begun his second term. However, since its inception, ICE has been a very dangerous organization that harms people far more than it helps them. They claim to be keeping the country safe from dangerous criminals, but in practice, they kill innocent, unarmed people simply for having no documentation. They shoot citizens with families just because they showed peaceful dissent. There have even been instances during the Obama administration of ICE forcibly sterilizing women who were in custody. Surprisingly, I have seen self-proclaimed Goths say that they agree with the idea of ICE, just not the execution of it. This is a ridiculously uneducated statement. ICE has never been virtuous, and to be truly anti-ICE means to recognize that this isn't solely a Trump problem, though of course he's done no favors to anyone, but also a capitalist problem. Trump didn't turn ICE evil, they always were. They were built on the same principles the police were built on. In a society where products are placed above people, where money means more than human life, how could we ever expect an armed tactical force, if one could even call them that, to carry out their job with regard for the human beings that they are being directed to detain? You cannot in good conscience call yourself a Goth while supporting an organization that prioritizes documentation papers over literal human lives. Anti-racism. Anti-racism isn't just being against racism. Someone can claim to be against it all they want, but if they aren't actively challenging racism where they see it, then they are not anti-racist. Anti-racism requires action and constant learning, and unlearning as well. The deconstruction of racial stereotypes is crucial to being able to effectively do this. Additionally, learning both history and current events are non-negotiable. In order to actually be anti-racist, you have to know how the current system operates and oppresses the people of color. Only when you know how the machine works can you begin to take it apart. Anti-Zionism. Zionism is a political colonial ideology that believes that Jewish people have the divine right to the land that the ethno-state of Israel is situated in. Of course, no one has the divine right to any land, and using religion as an excuse to slaughter hundreds of thousands of Palestinians is utterly inane. Israel continues to commit a mass genocide against the Palestinian people living in Gaza, and even citing quotes from Adolf Hitler when discussing how they feel about Palestinians. How can any Goth support a nation that quite literally quotes Hitler? How can any Goth support a country that is proud and open about the genocide they are committing? Zionism also functions on anti-Semitism, so calling out anti-Semitism where you see it is important. As long as Zionist Jews believe that the only place that they'll ever be safe from anti-Semitism is Israel, the Zionist system will continue to function as intended. The connection between America and Israel is shockingly intertwined. The American government invests more money into Israel every year than they invest into their own health care and education in literal decades. In fact, Israelis receive universal health care at no cost to them, and substantially more affordable university tuitions. Meanwhile, in America, people end up being out thousands of dollars after one emergency room visit, and this is exactly the way the system was built. Zionism is the insidious sister of capitalism. The two rely on one another in order to operate. And it's important to note that if you live in the U.S., Zionism is in complete favor of using your tax dollars to manufacture more weapons that will kill Palestinians. You want the government to take the money you worked your ass off to earn, only to spend it on bombs that Zionist celebrities will sign before they're dropped on innocent Palestinian civilians. I thought not. Zionism must be dismantled, and this cannot be done until capitalism is dismantled as well. Feminism. Feminism is a term many people have heard, but few people actually define correctly. Feminism doesn't mean that women believe that they are better than men. Feminism doesn't believe that all men should die. Rather, we believe that the government systems that we have oppressed women for centuries must be dismantled and rebuilt in a way that is equitable for people of all genders. It requires current, outdated, restrictive gender structures to be torn down. It requires women globally to be legally allowed to do everything men can do, like owning property, voting, and holding office. Medical research and attention shouldn't focus mostly on testosterone-dominant anatomy. Estrogen-dominant bodies make up half the world's population, so why are they so under-researched? This also includes bodily autonomy and the freedom of choice in regards to keeping a pregnancy. Feminists believe that abortion is a human right and that no one, no matter the circumstances, should ever be forced to carry a fetus they don't want to carry or don't have the means to support. Feminism also extends to a social context as well. It protects women by educating men. Teaching your daughter to dress modestly to avoid being assaulted isn't feminism, but teaching your son to respect the consent and treat women as human beings is. Teaching girls that they have to marry and have a family isn't feminist, but leaving them the choice and opportunity to live whatever sort of life they'd like is. The best way we can protect our daughters is by educating our sons. So that is a rundown of the political ideologies that Goths have. If you look at Goth musicians throughout the subculture's history, you'll find that these values are nearly universal among them. Goth has always been political. The rise of Goth as a trend on social media has severely watered the subculture down and given people the wrong idea of what it is. But the truth is that it is deeply rooted in political and social change.
Hi, my name is Cheyenne. I'm gonna have some socials right here real quick. I was in the Jake Monroe video. I do apologize for how long I yapped. Hopefully this time, this is post-recording Cheyenne talking. I will not be yapping as much, but I will be trying to fulfill as much information as possible. I live in California, which is the state with the largest Hispanic and Latino population in the entire country, which makes the entire situation of ICE here 10 times worse. I myself have seen how destructive it is. People, they can't leave their houses. They can't go grocery shopping. They have to designate like 1 or 2 people that can go out and the rest stay home. It's gotten to the point that so many small Latino/Hispanic owned businesses, especially around my area, have put up in their windows that ICE is not welcome in their business because so many people are scared to even go outside. They can't get their hair cut. They can't do the regular things that they wanted to do. They can't go out to eat with their family. My portion of this video is just going to go over a lot of different kinds of resources that you yourself can share, or if you and your family need these resources, you guys can use these and kind of use it to kind of leapfrog to the right place that you need to be. Depending on the area you're located, you can find regional-based websites and programs that can provide up-to-date information on your rights, resources around you, areas with issues, how you can get involved, mental health, access to healthcare, and a lot more. Some of these websites might also have hotlines you can call, which are community-led and available to provide you information as well. I am using Inland Coalition for Immigration Justice as an example of how these websites work. URL for the specific website is right there. So I decided to kind of just screen record going through all of it so that you can use this as a perfect example of how to know how to bounce around these websites, because I know sometimes you're on a new website, it can be confusing, but it's all laid out right there for you. Now, depending on the region you're at, you can find similar resources as well, just like this. In my research, I have also been able to find a Google Doc that has been created and updated frequently of resources divided by state that also includes info for LGBTQ+, disabled individuals, and extremely large amount of legal resources. I originally found this doc through @Belangley, but I am so sorry I'm voicing this over, BELANGYN on TikTok, who says that they got the doc from @MissFrizzyHead on TikTok, and as of this moment in time, the account is unable to be found and is deactivated. But, it is still pretty darn good. I mean, you can see how I'm scrolling through here, almost every single state, so many legal resources, so many resources for almost anything that you need. So if you or a loved one need any kind of resource like this is an amazing option. I would also like to personally shout out the Instagram page We Keep Us Safe 1312, which covers the region of the Inland Empire of California. This page from the beginning has been an amazing insight of what true journalism and documentation looks like, and has a large amount of resources spread through and in their bio. They make posts about where ICE has been spotted in communities with vehicle descriptions and license plates, post GoFundMes of families in need and have been affected by ICE, and help promote protests for the area. If you are looking to show support, please follow this page, and if you are not from the specific area, please find groups near you and make sure to share this information on your own social media. Word of mouth is the best way to get a lot of information out quickly instead of relying on algorithms to carry out a message. Genuinely especially with how algorithms are these days, it is very important to support groups like this to get the word out. Like I said, it is word of mouth that is the most important. That's why we're making this video. That's why groups come together like this, to be able to make these kinds of websites and make these kinds of resources, because with how we are being treated in this country, it is up to us to get that information out there. So please share this video. Please share all the information. Please follow all of these lovely creators that are part of this video. Love you.
Have you ever wanted to identify ICE, know the cars they drive, and just in case if you're worried of their presence being around? Here, I have some advice on how to identify ICE, know the vehicles they drive, what they wear, and just common signs that you can look out for in a situation. Usually you would see ICE agents wearing face gaiters, like those long masks that they would wear on their necks and face. Those are very common. ICE usually drives SUVs, GMCs. They drive vans that have federal license plates, no license plates at all. License plates where some numbers and some letters may resemble to be, bought out, some may be displayed. If you spot any of these vehicles, or if you see any similarities, not by coincidence, try to get away as fast or as quickly as you can, and or if you're in like any sort of lane with them, try to exit lanes as fast as you can and as safely as you can. Another thing that they will wear if they're not in uniform is like baseball caps, like any kind, like they could have a sports logo on them, a number, anything they can have. They will also tend to wear like heavy duty boots such as these and these and these. A way I know these things is because I had a neighbor who was an ICE agent. As hard as that is to talk about. So short story short, I went to school with his daughter, and at that time, when I was a child, I didn't know that his job was as inhumane as it was. He had the common border patrol car, he had the list of vehicles that I just named off. I can say that our friendship did last for a majority of years due to not having that many friends growing up, and I guess she didn't either, but I still felt like she was cliquish as a person, and so was her family, and I just feel like that comes from all the negativity of that man's job. I don't know anything about these people as of this present day, but I did know things. And ICE will always carry weapons, firearms, such as rifles. They'll always carry rifles on them, no matter what they are doing. No matter what you do, they're gonna have rifles on them. And they're gonna try to find ways to use them. Another thing that ICE agents will wear if they are not in uniform is specifically green, nylon textured, camouflage, whatever looking t-shirts. Yeah. I believe I already showed this photo, but I'm sure there's more on the screen. So to avoid ICE altogether, what I really recommend is to remember your rights, remember what you know, take in all identification advice. I want this message to be able to help people understand ICE, help people to understand what it is and what they do, what they really do, and what their intentions are. And I really hope that everyone stays safe from ICE and nobody else is killed. I just really hope that this happens. I just really hope that this is heard. I'm gonna go on and go to the next person.
Hi guys, it's Beezy again. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. Please, no hate speech. We will not tolerate any hate. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who worked on this project with me. Wow, the Goth community just continues to show me how passionate we are as Goths to be talking about these situations and standing up for what's right. So everyone here is super intelligent, smart, beautiful, and just amazing. So please give them a follow on Instagram as well. I will have all their Instagrams listed at the end of this video. And you can also find them on my Instagram. I will have a post for this specific YouTube video. You will find it on my Instagram. You can find all their usernames there as well. They deserve just as much love as I do. If you like this, please like and subscribe. There will be more projects that I will be doing with the Goth community in the future, and there will be more standalone videos of just me as well. So I hope to see you next time. Bye! Mwah.